Space, the final frontier. Join us for a bold conversation. Our prime directive: to recap our favorite Star Trek shows, both new and old. To engage in debate about all things Trek. Prepare to energize with phasers set to stun.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to an all-new episode of Phasers Set to Stun, where we continue to show our love for everything Star Trek in this ongoing series from A Film By Podcast, focusing on every system of the expanding Star Trek universe by covering television, movies, animation, directors, merchandise, and much, much more. Plotting your course on this voyage is your core Trek crew. I'm Wayne Whited.
I'm David Burns.
Yeah, and I'm Scott Hoffman.
And today we're taking a shuttle back to the 1980s, 1982 to be exact, and taking a close and detailed look at the second entry into the Star Trek film franchise, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. This is the second film to star the original series cast and was written by Harve Bennett and Jack B. Sowards and directed by Nicholas Meyer. Scott, why don't you give us a short summary of the film?
Time is catching up with James T. Kirk. A past that haunts his future is coming to bear in more ways than one. He's celebrating his birthday as an admiral inspecting an updated Enterprise that's been infused with new cadets who are being trained by Captain Spock. Inspections are cut short when a mysterious call comes from an old flame, Carol Marcus. She's developing a terraforming technology that creates life from lifelessness, or in the wrong hands, decimates all life on a world to create a new one in its place. She thinks Kirk has ordered Starfleet to steal Genesis from her, which he hasn't, but the USS Reliant is on its way to do just that. This is all part of an intricate trap set by Khan, a genetically augmented villain from the original series who seeks revenge on Kirk for marooning him on the hellscape of Ceti Alpha 5. As he faces off against Khan, Kirk meets his own grown son he never knew he had, as he fights to save his crew and his family from obliteration under the tyranny of Khan. This movie is an action-packed adventure that revitalized the franchise and set a high bar for all movies to follow.
Now, while Star Trek the Motion Picture was a financial success for Paramount, it was heavily panned by critics and fans. The executives of Paramount wanted to change for the second film, which meant that series creator Gene Roddenberry was forced out of the sequel's production. Now, we're all very familiar with this film. It's no secret that it's most Star Trek fans' favorite. So let's talk about it. David, we'll hear from you first.
Well, I mean, you kind of already touched base on this. A lot of Star Trek fans consider this to be the best Star Trek of all the films. I think Undiscovered Country is the best, but this is a very close second in my opinion. And it clearly has the most memorable scenes of any Star Trek film.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with Kirk, screaming Khan to the death of Spock. You can't get beyond those scenes. You cannot think of the Wrath of Khan without thinking of those scenes right away. What I loved about this film is it did indeed bring back Star Trek to me as a kid. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, motion picture was a great film, and we discussed this when we talked about the motion picture, that, 12-year-old me wasn't a fan of the motion picture, but as an adult I am. Whereas this one, when it came out, I was thrilled because it felt like that Star Trek game that I saw in reruns. The Kirk, the Spock, all of them were back in where they needed to be. And you had a true villain in this one with Khan. And Ricardo Montalban was absolutely stunning as Khan, as a villain in this film. When he gets that reveal of who it is, even when Chekhov realizes where they're at, and he realizes, oh my God, get out of here, this is the Botany Bay, we gotta go. And it was too late, of course, by that point. But then the reveal to Kirk, when he comes on screen and he sees who it is with the Reliant. Incredible moments, man. I love this film.
Yeah, for me, it's my first dip into Star Trek. And I imagine there's a lot of people in our generation that's true. Like, I had not seen the original series. I was kind of tangentially aware of it, but had never necessarily sat down to watch it until this. I'm pretty sure I saw it at home on VHS or on HBO or wherever it happened to be, but I was immediately hooked. This one has so much more accessibility and reach, I would say, than the motion picture. At the point where it came out, they were already part of popular culture, so you kind of had an idea for at least Kirk and Spock walking into it. They very quickly get you familiar with everybody you need to know. At the time when I saw it, I had no context for Khan, so I just trusted Chekhov's scared reaction. Aside from the fact that they just dip you right into not only the action but a bit of the terror and intrigue. I think we're seeing a lot of influence from something like Alien in this one, where as a kid, there were a lot of places where it was scary to watch, like when they get onto the Genesis station and they discover the dead bodies. Like there are those stings of music where I was just like, holy crap, I'm going to see like dead bodies and stuff. Like this is horrific. So I think it appeals to so many people. It was a great follow-up to the motion picture to kind of prove that this can appeal to people who are not just fans. There's a lot of people that can kind of get into this universe.
And not to mention the earworms. Come on, man.
Oh yeah, no, those are terrifying to this day.
Yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very similar to what you said, Scott. This was my first introduction to Star Trek. I didn't see the motion picture in theaters, but I did see Star Trek 2. And I was a big fan. I was Star Wars, a Battlestar Galactica fan. That was me growing up. So I was used to the space battles, and we got that in this film, and I loved it. I mean, I took to it right away, and I remember coming home afterwards, and you couldn't buy. There was no merchandise with this. They didn't have any spaceships or anything, so I made my own out of clay.
Nice.
and would do the space battles that way. I mean, it really had a great impact on, let's see, how old was I? About 10 years old at the time.
Yeah.
So, it's a great film. Everything that I love the motion picture. Don't get me wrong. I love that film. It's one of my favorites. I fluctuate back and forth between what's my favorite Star Trek film. You ask me every week, it's going to be different, but this is always high on the list.
It is.
But everything that they did that people consider were wrong with Star Trek the motion picture, they did right with this film. They corrected their mistakes and made a film that's not just for Star Trek fans but for the viewer that has no idea about Star Trek, like 10-year-old me. It's a great film. It's not just a great Star Trek film, it's a great film. And wasn't it recently wasn't it recently voted to go into the what I can't think, the motion picture archives or whatever that's called?
Yeah.
It deserves that. It is true,
for sure,
great American cinema.
Yeah, without question. And as we know, Jerry Goldsmith did not do the music for this movie, just because of they didn't want Jerry Goldsmith, and he was busy too.
He was too expensive as well.
He was too expensive, yes, and they wanted to go with really an unknown who was cheap. And what we all know, James Horner, now we do, who did a really good job with this score. My only complaint with this score is it sounds too much like Battle Beyond the Stars, which he did in 1980.
Yeah.
So but it fits this movie perfectly. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to pick on it because I love James Horner. Wayne, you know I love James Horner.
Oh, yes, I do.
I have almost all of his scores. And unfortunately, we lost him, quite a few years ago. But I think he did a fantastic job with the score in this. Did you guys know he's in this movie?
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
He is one of the guys running down the hallway right before they battle Khan. Right before they're lifting up the sidewalk kind of thing, or not sidewalk, but those metal grates.
The grates.
Yeah.
For the photo torpedo. He was running down the hallway.
That's right.
Right before that scene. So, but yeah, no, I think James Horner did a really good job with this.
He did.
The action sounds, and James Horner loves the anvil. You hear that in a lot of his scores. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about his score a little bit later, but I just wanted to point that out.
Mm-hmm. It's a highlight of the film. It is. And there's so many different things. I mean, this is also, they changed the visual effects company. The visual effects were done by Industrial Light and Magic, who at the time was just really, I mean, they'd done Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, but they hadn't really branched out to do other films. So this was their first thing doing other than Star Wars. And they are the best, and they showed that they are the best in the business with the effects. They're incredible. You reused a lot of effects from the motion picture because they had to save money.
Exactly.
But what they came out, that battle in the Mutara Nebula is amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Very suspenseful, and it puts you on the edge of your seats.
Yeah.
Well, it gets so. I mean, like when you talk about James Horner and the kind of the variety of things that you get in this movie, which, to say the least, is the return of the fun Kirk.
Yes.
I think in the motion picture we got kind of the subdued. You didn't get that suave, debonair kind of almost comedic action from him, and the range of the plot is echoed in the range of the score. You get the terror, you get that action and adventure, you get the light moments, like when they're in the Genesis cave. Even though it seems like it should be one of the tense moments, he's asking for an apple. He's hungry.
He's hungry.
So there's a lot of great range in this, and I think that goes back to the accessibility of it. It shows how much range there is in a Star Trek movie.
Yeah, because that was one of the big complaints about the motion picture, is that a lot of people felt that the characters were rather cold to themselves. They weren't the type of characters that they remember from the original series. And I know we discussed that on our motion picture podcast, that there had been years between where they had, these characters had never seen one another. So I put it up as that. But here now we got another time jump. I don't know if I think it's close to like 10 years time jump between the motion picture and this. But now they've been with each other for a long time. So now we've got that friendship, that chemistry that we saw with the original series right here, and it's fantastic. We finally get the characters that we remember from the 60 series.
This movie does such a great job of two reveals. One is when Kirk is revealed after they do the test with Saavik. When you get that silhouette shot of him with the light behind him. I loved that reveal of him.
Yeah.
I thought that was an absolutely incredible an introduction to his character in this movie. The second reveal is obviously Khan. He gets revealed twice though, which is fantastic. Once to Chekhov, and then once to Kirk. Kirk's reaction to that was just phenomenal when he sees him pop up in the screen. I mean, wouldn't you be? The guy's been gone for 15 years, and you just put him out of your mind because you thought you would never see him again. And here he is. Holy crap! And he's got the Reliant. So that was a really cool scene. And going back to what you were discussing, Wayne, that these characters really felt like they're characters again. You really had that depth of characters between McCoy and Spock again. Yeah. We had a little bit in the motion picture, but in this one, you had a lot more of that. And it felt genuine and real, just like it did in the TV show. One of the lines that I absolutely love is when Spock says, "Jim, be careful." And McCoy leans in, he goes, "We will."
We will be.
Love that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and that's, getting back to what you were saying earlier about you get to see the relationship between them kind of rekindled. That happens immediately in the Kobayashi Maru, which is a brilliant way to start it. I think that's something that comes up a lot in this movie, but also it's echoed through the rest of the franchise.
Yep.
But in that simulation, they're all kind of palling around. Like Jim's like, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?" to Spock.
Nice foreshadowing.
And soon after that, you get the exchange of presents.
Yeah.
Right. The Romulan ale, the glasses, the dialogue you have between them. You immediately get the connectivity throughout. Not to mention Scotty, which I think there are two different ways to see this movie depending on how it's cut. Whether we find out that his nephew is part of the engineering crew or we don't. I think without that reveal, it's interesting to see Scotty carry his nephew's body onto the bridge, because then you're reading it as he cares so much for these cadets. He's gotten so close to these cadets that he sees them as one of his own. So he's heartbroken at this loss. You get a different kind of depth when you find out that it's his nephew. And it's kind of hinting at the future. Like you've got generations being passed on. You've got them moving on and kind of welcoming that new crew and knowing that they're already that close. It's just the relationship, the connectivity that we see in things like Strange New Worlds that adds more depth to Star Trek.
Even his line when they were in the medical bay with him and he was dying, And Mr. Scott was like, he stayed at his post when the trainees ran.
Yeah.
Just broke your heart, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about the opening sequences, I think that's just a fantastic way of opening the film with the Kobayashi Maru scene. I mean, you got this ship, we don't know which ship it is. You got this crew we've never met before, and they're being attacked by the Klingons, and then all of a sudden you discover that it's just a training maneuver, and you get Kirk, Spock, McCoy as we originally remembered them, and this great sequence about his birthday. What a fantastic way of opening this film and showing everyone that, hey, this is the Star Trek that you guys wanted. This is what you remember. It's perfect.
I really appreciate it, and I believe there was stuff that went on behind the scenes with the script and stuff like that about an aging Kirk.
Yeah.
And at first they didn't want that. They wanted, I think it was William Shatner who didn't want that, right? At first.
Yeah, he was a little worried about showing his age.
But it works in this film.
It does.
So well. Even with the whole glasses thing, when he's on the bridge and he's trying to hide his conversation with Khan, who's on the screen, and he's pulling his glasses out and kind of like looking around a little bit like he's kind of embarrassed of pulling these glasses out, because he needs them to see. I love that. We need to see an aging Kirk, because he is, for crying out loud. He's been out there running around the galaxy fighting and, going on journeys and adventures, and you need to see that. And I'm glad they went that route. I really am.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about the changes that they made in this film. The big one is the uniforms. What do you think about these uniforms compared to the ones that the motion picture had?
I think it's an upgrade for sure. You don't have the unfortunate below the belt buckle kind of situation, to say it delicately. But I mean, it has so much texture and so many layers to it. There's the added kind of affect to the action where you see Jim kind of unbuckle the lapel or whatever, so it folds over, right? And you've got like blood stains apparently that occasionally they kind of appear. I think it adds a lot of interest to it, and it definitely modernized it for a new generation.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that, Scott. I love the uniforms in this. I think it was a great addition. They felt more like a command crew of a Navy ship, obviously they're in space, but you still have that same kind of vibe going on, and it really felt like that to me a lot more. And again, it felt more like Star Trek because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they were going for too. They were going for that naval look and style. There were a lot of fans that were against that. They didn't like the style and of the new uniforms, and felt that they went too far away from the original series. But I think they're fantastic. They look really sharp.
Yeah.
I know they've been dubbed the Monster Maroon uniforms, and for poor old cosplayers, they are incredibly difficult to reproduce because of the unusual materials and styles that was used to make them.
And they keep these all the way through 6
and farther.
And farther, but I just mean for the OG crew, because actually, they're in it in Generations too, aren't they? Come to think of it, all right, you're right.
Well, and speaking of costumes, you've got Khan and his Mad Max vibes with a B. Arthur style mullet, but
really showing the chest there too.
Oh yeah, he is, and that's really him.
You got to be proud of it, right? You're 60 and you're rocking those pecs. Go ahead, man.
Yep.
But all the little details, like the little skeletal glove that he's got, wearing the belt buckle of a killed crew member as a kind of a Mr. T kind of thing. It was really cool to see somebody who doesn't belong in that future, that is kind of staying alive with the scraps, coming back and just kicking their butts. Like, they should have listened to Saavik. I'm sorry. They should have listened to Saavik and put up the shields, but got caught with their bridges down. So.
And here's another new addition to this film. We got Kirstie Alley as Saavik. What were your thoughts on her?
I wish we had seen more of Saavik. I think she did a great job. I think it was a good idea to have some infusion of some new talent. It reminds me a lot of Kim Cattrall's character in the Undiscovered Country, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the What Ifs. I'm glad that her character continued. I think we had a great continuation of that character in Star Trek 3. But knowing that Kirstie Alley was a fan of Star Trek, that she would go to bed as a kid wearing the Spock ears.
She did that too while filming the movie too.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's a fan. You got to give love to that.
Yeah.
But I think she did great.
When I learned all that, it's like, wow, she's like the Tawny Newsome of this age, of the OG, you know.
Right.
So I appreciate that more, but I absolutely loved her character. I wish we had gotten a whole lot more of her. And my understanding is they thought that she would possibly replace Spock, because they were going to kill Spock off, is what they intended. But then, of course, Paramount snuck in that little tidbit at the end, with you know, his casket. Which I find amusing, by the way, because Leonard Nimoy even made the comment because he didn't know they filmed that. And apparently when he saw that, he's like, well, I guess I'm expecting a phone call from Paramount.
He's sitting in the theater and either throws his popcorn down or says, like, okay, it's another paycheck.
Here we go. Yep.
Yeah, I think she did a phenomenal job as Saavik. I liked Robin Curtis's performance in 3 and 4, but I think Kirstie's performance it was different. You know, she's a Vulcan, or at least half Vulcan. It never really was said that in the film that, you know, but it's assumed that she's half Vulcan, half Romulan.
Right.
But the way she has to try to hold back her emotions, and rather unsuccessful, she just performed it so beautifully. And it was a great double act with Leonard Nimoy. Just fantastic. And like both of you, I wish we would have saw more of her. And I know they tried getting her back, but she just became a very successful actress. And while she wanted to come back, she just never could work it out with her schedules.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to her for all the work she was getting, but
you
know, it sucks for us Star Trek fans that we couldn't get her back.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. All right, welcome back, where we will continue our discussion here at Phaser Set to Stun with Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan.
So we just talked about Kirstie Alley. I think we've got to give another nod to Ricardo Montalban for what he did with this. It's fascinating to know that he was filming Fantasy Island at the time, so he already was kind of back in popular culture. Had to kind of rewatch episodes to get re-familiar with the character, and he did so seamlessly. He delivered such a terrifying performance as a villain that never comes face to face with Kirk.
Which is crazy
in person, but right. You never think of it, but yeah. And you know, his character just echoes when you think of like who is the greatest villain in Star Trek. His name is always at or near the top.
Which is always odd because, I mean, you really think about it, he made one appearance in the original series during the first season, just one appearance. I mean, you know, it was a very strong appearance, obviously, you know, for someone to watch and say, we got to bring him back. And that was the right decision because he makes such an incredible villain and a perfect adversary for William Shatner and for Kirk. It's an incredible performance, very, very emotional performance that he puts into it. A highlight to this film.
What always makes a great villain is that you care about them, that you almost see what they're talking about, what they believe in, and what they're fighting for. It may be wrong, they may make the wrong choices, but when you have such a strong villain, and I'm talking like Darth Vader, you care about him, Anakin Skywalker, and in this instance, Khan. You know, you kind of see where he's coming from, and you kind of care about that, and you see that he believes wholeheartedly in what he's doing, cares about the people who have been around him for all of those years. And, you know, he even says you would do the same thing. You know, he even says that, and you would, absolutely.
You're right.
He lost 60 people, including his wife. That's not to write him a check for all the atrocities that he did before he was outcast in the Botany Bay. But, I mean, he sells the emotional heft of it, to be sure, even in his death scene, when he kind of stumbles up with that Harvey Dent Two-Face kind of approach, and you can see him struggling, but every bit of him wants to just get revenge on Kirk. So he sells it 100%.
He's obsessed with it, and that's what
He
costs
is.
his crew and him their
Yeah.
lives.
Exactly what I was going to say. You understand where he's coming from. I mean, they put him on that planet. They just forgot about him, and then that devastating thing happened to the planet, and
Yep.
he lost so many people, and he wants revenge, but he lets the revenge take him over.
Mm-hmm.
And he becomes obsessive with it to the point where he loses everything. And that's what his downfall is. His revenge, his obsession for getting revenge against Kirk is his downfall, and that's what makes a perfect film, perfect ending to a film is the rise and fall of that villain.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the most iconic deaths in Star Trek,
Yeah.
which hats off again to Leonard Nimoy for his performance from the minute he realizes what he has to do on the bridge until his literal dying breath. It floored me. Like,
Yeah.
emotionally, it floored me when I was a kid, and I had no context for it. And you see how close they are and how much this means and what kind of a strong character Spock is.
It's almost like, and I know they cleared the set when they filmed the death of Spock. There was did not let hardly anybody on set when this was being filmed because they did not want it to leak out, and thank God it didn't. You truly believe the performances of these actors in that scene, because they have been together for so many years. They were in that TV series together, and they're like our Next Generation crew. They were family, and when one of them is dying, granted it is on just in a film, but you're still losing that character who you have been with for so long that is almost like a part of you is truly being taken away. And you can see that in their performances, all of them. Even when McCoy and Scotty were banging on the glass to get him out of there, and then when McCoy reaches out to Kirk, tells him you need to get down here, and then when Kirk gets down there, you just see it in their eyes, their expressions. I don't think any of that's fake, man. I don't.
No. Oh God, that line where he says "better hurry." Oh,
Yeah.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a memorable scene. It's such an iconic scene in Star Trek, repeated over and over again in pop culture.
Yep.
And that just shows how much of an impact this film made to science fiction, not just Star Trek, but science fiction and film. It was a huge impact on Star Trek. People. I heard that on the set that when they were filming that, people were crying, and some of the crew that had never seen Star Trek, they didn't understand why these people were crying until they watched the film.
Yeah.
And then they realized how much these characters mean to people, who sat there and watched the original series. I love that story.
And let's give kudos to Leonard Nimoy. He really sold that performance of dying.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he was like huddled in the corner, far away, obviously very weak and dying, and he slowly makes his way over to Kirk, and just the performance between the two, and how he just slides down and Kirk slides down with him, and then just how the skin is just all
His voice is so raspy.
yes, his voice
Yeah.
raspy. It's just a incredible performance by Leonard Nimoy here.
Well, and when you're mentioning that scene where he kind of stands up, the fact that he does the Picard maneuver of straightening his tunic.
Yeah, he does.
He stands up straight to have some dignity, even though he bumps into the glass. But you feel horrible for him because the radiation has blinded him, and he takes that extra time to tell his friend that it's all right, that he knows what he had to do.
Yeah, it's the best death in Star Trek. It really is, and I hope they never even. I mean, they're never going to surpass that.
They can't.
That
There's
scene.
no
They
way.
can't. There's just no way.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that it doesn't always hit right when they try to replicate it. Like when they tried to redo it in the Chris Pine era, it didn't necessarily hit, in my opinion.
Not at all.
But I think it shows the value of having some emotional connections between the characters and some the value of character building. We've seen it in Lower Decks, we've seen it in Strange New Worlds, we've seen it in Discovery, we've seen it in Next Generation and DS9 and all over the place. The value of building those characters and knowing those characters can resonate with people, that it's not just dismissing it as sci-fi or dismissing it as Star Trek. I'm not into the space stuff. You're missing something entirely if you're not seeing these kind of things.
Yep. One of the lines in this movie that just chokes me up every time, and it's meant to, is when Kirk is giving that speech at the end. And he says, of all the souls I have met in my travels, he was the most, and then he breaks up right there, human.
Yeah.
That line just, it gets me every time, man. It does. Because of all the times that he's fought that of being Vulcan and half human, and for that line, it's just, man, it was so fitting right there.
Yeah.
But then also on top of that, you know, you get the bagpipe playing, which turns into a beautiful score piece by James Horner here. Like it just blends in beautifully right there.
And a beautiful visual effects shot on top of it too.
Yeah.
Well, let's twist the story a bit and look into another dimension with What If, where we discuss things that could have been with this film.
So one of the interesting what ifs is more about casting than direction of the film, possibly. And then a kind of a what if that I don't think was necessarily explored, both related to Saavik. So casting wise, apparently Kim Cattrall was the first choice for the role of Saavik. Auditioned for it, but wasn't available at the time. So she had come back to play Valeris in The Undiscovered Country.
I'm glad it went that way.
Me too.
I am very glad we went that way too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think she does an amazing job as Valeris.
Yes.
Very interesting to see the parallels between those two characters.
Yep.
Between these movies, especially since, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they give Saavik the Khan to take them out of space dock, and she says, "Take us out at some measure of impulse." I don't know if it was 1/4, 1/2, or full impulse. And everybody seems cool with it. But when Valeris is on the bridge, and the order is given to take us out of space dock at 1/4 impulse, she says, regulations dictate only maneuvering thrusters when exiting space dock. And he's like, "You heard me." And I was like, wait a second. Well, when did this come up? Like, you're either maneuvering thrusters or impulse, which is going to be.
It would have.
But the other aspect, kind of the what if that I had seen that I thought was interesting, was apparently there was more of a relationship with Peter Preston, Scotty's nephew, and Saavik. It didn't sound like it was necessarily a romantic relationship, but maybe a little bit more of like a mentor kind of thing. She was helping him with studies, and he had a bit of a crush on her. So
But we didn't need that.
True.
No, that would have been too much,
True,
Yeah.
but I think it's interesting that it adds a little bit more depth to her reaction to seeing his death on the bridge.
That's true.
Yeah, it would.
It sounds like maybe that's hinted at in the novelization. So, and it sounds like the emotional reaction is maybe taken a little bit too far, but just kind of some interesting what ifs related to Saavik.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because on the one scene where she goes in the elevator with Kirk, and she's like, "Did you do something with your hair?" And then, you know, they're talking. She obviously wants to talk about the test again. And then when McCoy, you know, pops up, the doors open and McCoy's standing there, and he goes, "Did she do something with her hair?" I just found that amusing. That it might have been part of it, and then they just decided not to go that route. You know?
Right. Yeah. And then McCoy says something about Romulan ale, and I'm like, "Oh, McCoy, don't make it creepy and weird, man. Just let her go do her stuff."
Right. Wasn't this originally going to be called The Undiscovered Country?
Yes.
And
that
isn't it
that
funny?
was one of its names, yeah.
Yeah. So that I'm glad it didn't. I'm glad it became The Wrath of Khan, because you know, we know it is today, and Undiscovered Country is Undiscovered Country. So it worked out.
Well, they
That's
also
what-
at one point were saying it was going to be The Vengeance of Khan.
Yep.
But when they knew that Jedi was going to be, I think at the time it was Revenge of the Jedi before they renamed it.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they didn't want it to be too close. We came out the right way with
We did,
Wrath of
yeah.
Khan. It's a great
We
title.
did. Yeah.
I agree. And that's what I wanted to touch on my what if, some of those early drafts, because they're actually rather interesting. You know, when the motion picture was released, Gene Roddenberry wrote a sequel script. It's where the Enterprise crew travels back in time to a changed, corrupted timeline where the Klingons had used the Guardian of Forever to go back in time and prevent the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now I'm trying to even imagine that as the second Star Trek film.
No.
Of course, Paramount, you know, they blamed the failure of the first film on Gene Roddenberry specifically, and they rejected the script, which I don't blame anything on him, but I agree with them with rejecting that script for it. And of course, he was taken off the project. And then they hired in a new producer, Harv Bennett, who had no knowledge of Star Trek whatsoever. And I think that's what they were looking for. And he came up with an idea for a script because there were two things that they wanted. They wanted it to be less boring, and they wanted it to cost less than, and I'll quote here, $45 effing million. Bennett's idea was called War of the Generations, where Kirk investigates a rebellion on a distant world and discovers that his son is the leader of the rebels. Khan is the mastermind behind the plot, and Kirk and son join forces to defeat the tyrant. We're getting a little closer to Wrath of Khan, but Bennett wasn't a scriptwriter, so he hired in Jack B. Sowards to write, which was called The Omega Syndrome. And that included the storyline with the theft of the Federation's ultimate weapon, which was called the Omega System. But Bennett didn't like the idea of an ultimate weapon, so they changed it into a terraforming device, which became the Genesis device. Slowly it became the script that we are familiar with. And but Paramount at that time asked writer Samuel A. Peoples to write a script as well. Now, he wrote, for the original series, he wrote Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot. But they rejected it because the script was too much like the original series.
All I know is if they had gone with the original Gene Roddenberry idea, we would not have had Star Trek 3.
Probably not.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
For sure.
Right. But then, of course, like you said, you had mentioned earlier, they brought in Nicholas Meyer to direct it. He took those ideas, wrote his version of the script, and that's what became The Undiscovered Country. And then it was, the whole through changing of the names. He did not like the change of the name, though. He wanted it to stay on Discovered Country. It was the head of marketing at Paramount that changed it to Vengeance of Khan. And then, of course, they changed it to Wrath of Khan, just like you said. But he hated that, and I think that's why he called his second film that he directed The Undiscovered Country.
It worked out. Come on, it did.
Well, there's something else that stood out to me in this viewing of it, just knowing all the subsequent movies and kind of a plot thread that seems to carry through at least the first 4 movies, is it's time for Jim Kirk to move on, but he doesn't or can't.
Yeah,
he refuses.
Yeah, he
Right.
doesn't want to.
Well, 4 full movies, it's kind of like, it's interesting.
Well, what I like about those part 2, part 3, part 4 are all on top of one another.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's basically one big movie right there.
It's a trilogy. It's a trilogy. Yeah. I can't see one without the other 3. It's one long story.
Yeah, I agree. And did I not hear that at one point Ron Howard was even in line to direct this film? That's what
It's possible. I mean, he was the in thing at the time. The up and coming director. I'm sure his name went across their desks at one point.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. But it is what it is.
Of course, we can't talk about a Star Trek film without going into an in-depth discussion about its musical score. For Star Trek II, the production weren't able to afford the hefty fee that Academy Award-winning composer Jerry Goldsmith required. So they were looking, as David said, someone much cheaper. Well, they found what they were looking for with the relatively new 28-year-old composer named James Horner. This would be Horner's first major film score. He had scored a few low-budget films, like for Roger Corman. You mentioned Battle Beyond the Stars, and Humanoids from the Deep, as well as a handful of TV movies. But that was it. And he saw this as his chance for a big break, and he was right.
It worked.
Now, David, you are the biggest James Horner fan that I know, so I'm going to let you start with this.
Well, I mean, this was his first major high-profile film, and he had a lot of pressure on him. So, he knew he had to do a good job. It's funny, I found a quote from him, and he says, "I'm sure that I was influenced by Goldsmith's large orchestral scores when I started out, and that was because the people who employed me wanted that kind of sound. I wasn't in a position to say go to hell."
Yeah.
So, and he did not have a lot of background yet, as you said, Wayne. He had done just some, small independent things with Roger Corman and stuff like that. And, I mentioned at the beginning, it sounds a lot like Battle Beyond the Stars. It really
does.
Dead on at points. And I'm like, wow, can you not rip off yourself? Because you did.
Now, I love Horner too, but it's a known fact that he does like to reuse sections of his score in other films. I mean, we can go over for hours talking about that, but so I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that.
I don't
there are differences, but there are similarities.
Yeah, and he had some really good pieces in here that we talked about. The bagpipe part is one of my favorites of this entire film, and there's a lot of good pieces in this film, but the whole bagpipe, when it just transcends into his score, is just so beautifully well done.
It is.
And he really does a good job of action sequences, which is why he got chosen for Aliens. He's fantastic with that stuff because he loves the anvil. And again, I mentioned that before. You will hear that in a lot of his music. And he uses it in Titanic, for crying out loud. Yep. There's a lot of anvil in his stuff. One of my favorite scores of his is Enemy at the Gates. And he has like I want to say it's like an 18, 19-minute piece that is just absolutely stunning. And the anvil's in there again. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. But, just one of his favorite, and a lot of composers have that, where they have that one thing that they love to use over and over, and you'll hear it in a lot of their pieces. And Horner's no different.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and see what Scott says about the musical score. Welcome back, and we are talking about the second Star Trek film, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and specifically its musical score. So, Scott, what do you think?
I gotta agree with Dave on the Amazing Grace transitioning from the bagpipes to it's Goosebumps again. But so one of those sequences on Regular One where we get the terrifying use of score to just put you on the edge of your seat. Absolutely works to ratchet up the terror with not a lot going on. It's just a mouse that appears before there's a dead body that hits you with that sting. It's just used to perfection. But above that, I'd say is the Battle of the Mutara Nebula. The music in that is absolutely perfect.
Yep.
And I love that, including the sequence like you talked about before, where they're kind of lifting those grates to prepare the rail for the photon torpedoes. There's that militaristic kind of vibe to it, and it just adds to the flow of the whole thing. It's classic.
And if am I remembering correctly, in the Nebula scene, when the Enterprise, I believe, was coming forward towards the screen, did he not use the same sound from the motion picture that Jerry Goldsmith used?
The blaster beam, yes, he did.
The blaster beam, yeah.
Yes, he did.
It was look at that.
Yep, and the performer, Craig Huxley, he performed it for this film as well. And it works. It really does work. I love that instrument.
Yeah, me too.
You mentioned a great score, Scott, or great cue, and I want to add my favorite cue too, which is Genesis Countdown. I love that piece of music. It's just incredible. It's a very emotional build up to when the Genesis device, activates and the Enterprise warps away. It works so well. For Horner's first major film, he really knocked it out of the park on this one. Did. I can see why everyone just suddenly started taking notice, and he started getting more and more jobs at films because I love Jerry Goldsmith, but I can't imagine anyone else but James Horner scoring this film.
I agree.
Yeah, it's, pun intended, it hits a lot of emotional chords.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The non-verbal drama in that sequence, accentuated by the score. But I'm thinking specifically when Jim looks at his son David, almost like, "Are we going to make it?" And David's like, "Not a chance." Just shakes his head quietly, and it's the score that accentuates that emotional moment so much more.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And this score is a lot of soundtrack fans' favorites too, because it has been in print ever since the beginning. You'll have no problem finding a copy of it. It was released back in July of 1982. 45 minutes of the score. Delivered most of the main cues that you heard, but then it was re-released on CD in 1990 by GNP Crescendo Records. And then we finally, in 2009, got the complete score from Film Score Monthly.
Amen.
23 tracks. Yeah, I know. There was even though most of the major cues were there were still a lot of great little pieces, including that piece that you were talking about that took place on Regular One. So it's available, and then it was re-released again in 2021 by La La Land Records. 2 CDs this time. They included the original album remastered, as well as all the alternate and unused cues. This is still available. It's still out there. You can go to La La Land Records website and get your copy right now.
I got it.
Yep. All right. Now that we've discussed the film in depth, both on scene and behind the camera, let's talk about our personal favorite bits from Star Trek The Wrath of Khan. I know we've discussed quite a few of them. Scott, what is your favorite scene from the film?
I think one that I'm going to key up as a favorite, because we've talked about so many. I want Judson Scott to get more credit as Khan's right-hand man, Joaquin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he gets overlooked. I agree.
Yes, he does.
He has a great death scene because he's trying as much as he can to tell Ahab, get over your own ego. Stop chasing the whale. You have everything you want. You don't need to do this. And then when he dies, he says, yours is superior. Just like that's what he knows that he always needed to hear, and then dies with his eyes open. To know that he got a lack of screen credit seems like a crime in this. I think he's an unsung highlight of the movie.
Yeah. That was his agent's fault, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. Wanted to waive credit to negotiate better credit placement later.
Silly.
Mistake.
Yep.
But, that doesn't mean that he wasn't trying his damnedest. Like, he gave a performance that stands out to somebody who you don't even know his name until he's dying.
Yeah. I agree.
David, what about you?
So I don't want to talk about the obvious, the films that are the scenes that are very popular, that we all know and love. So the one that I really attach to is Spock's speech on advising Kirk. He should never have given up, Captain. I really like that scene. Basically he goes in there to tell him, I don't want to take over your ship or, anything like that. And then Spock really just, goes in to tell him, my ego can't be bruised. And I love all of the things between those two because you really see their friendship at its height here, and they really care for one another, and you can tell Spock cares, even though, he has to keep those emotions in check, and we all know where it's leading, obviously, the death of Spock, but I just appreciated that because it keeps coming back that Kirk should never have given up that chair. Even McCoy talked about that, I believe, in the motion picture. He should have never have given up that chair. And then this is, Spock is really, telling him about that as well. So that's one of my favorite scenes of this film. Wayne, what about you?
Well, I'm the same way. I don't want to pick one of the obvious ones, but one of the little scenes that I absolutely love is when they're in the Genesis cave and Kirk finally reveals how he managed to do the Kobayashi Maru, how he managed to win that to Saavik, and her surprise to it. And then, he takes a bite of the apple, flips his communicator open and says, I don't like to lose. And, finds out everything's been planned. And she goes, you lied? And he goes, I exaggerated. I love that scene. I mean, that shows Kirk. That's the Kirk that we remember. He had everything planned out. He knew exactly what to do. I love that.
Yeah. Good
well,
pick.
you even mentioned the I exaggerated, and Spock playing along with that. Like, he can emotionless still deliver comedic moment and still be like, I'm clever enough to do this.
Yep.
All right, now's the time I usually talk about Easter eggs, but we're traveling about 40 plus years to discuss this film, and there really isn't too many Easter eggs, as you would call this. So I'm going to call this film facts.
There we go.
When the film first appeared in theaters in June of 1982, the opening credits of this movie simply listed Star Trek The Wrath of Khan. Since the first film was titled Star Trek: The Motion Picture, there was no Star Trek 1 on it. They didn't include the 2. That didn't come out until later showings in the video release. And for all you weird Star Trek fans out there like me, the opening scenes of Star Trek 2 take place on March 22nd, 2285. I know this because Kirk mentions that it's his birthday. And in the Star Trek Enterprise episode In the Mirror Darkly Part 2, the computer screen establishes Kirk's birth to be on March 22nd. And that also happens to be William Shatner's birthday as well. This is the only original series movie in which a Federation ship fires its phasers. I don't know if you guys realize that.
Yep.
All the other films have
Torpedoes.
them firing photon torpedoes. The next time we see the phasers being shot was the Enterprise D in Star Trek Generations.
Yep.
All right. This film earned $14,347,000 at the U.S. box office on its opening weekend. That was a record. It wouldn't be broken until the release of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Of course, The Search for Spock made a lot more money than this. And the film ended up making about $92 million, which is not bad for a $12 million film.
Nope.
As with the motion picture, the movie was pre-sold to the ABC TV network for a first-time airing in the U.S. This entitled 2 airings for the film, which included deleted and alternate scenes. And it was also lightly censored for TV viewing. But this extended version that was shown, unlike the motion pictures, never been released. Not on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. There's no way to see it.
Huh.
Unless of course, you recorded the original airings of them. This film was novelized by Vonda N. McIntyre and adapted into a photo story by Richard and Noble. But unlike the motion picture and every other Star Trek film after it, it never got a comic book adaptation. But this was finally corrected in 2009. IDW wrote a 3-issue series to finally fill in that gap so that we have the complete series. And finally, there were very little in the way of tie-in merchandise for this film. They kind of got burned with the motion picture. So no one was really willing to take any contracts for this. Like I said, there were no comic books, no action figures, toys, no food promotions. All we got was a release of Viewmaster reels with some images of the film. Starlog magazine released an official movie poster magazine, and that's about it. We did get a Khan and Savick action figure years later from Playmates, but there was very little for us kids to bring home after watching this film.
Just need a lot of clay, right, Wayne?
I did. I used a lot of clay for this. But hey, I have some good memories of playing with those ships.
That's awesome.
All right, guys, have anything else to add about Star Trek 2 that hasn't been said? Because this film has been talked about a lot.
It has. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah.
All right. And that concludes our look back at the film Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. We'd like to open a channel to our listeners and hear just what you thought about this entry into the Star Trek universe, your stories of how you saw it first, and your opinions of the film today. Who knows, you might even get a mention on a future show. Of course, you can email us at afilmbypodcast@gmail.com. Find us online at afilmbypodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And if you're looking for an exclusive content or swag, you can join our Patreon and find out what hidden gems are within. Thank you, David and Scott, for joining me and the listeners for another fascinating discussion.
Thanks.
Yeah. Pleasure.
For those of you that missed it, you can check out our Film By website and listen to the Film at 45 podcast on our thoughts and feelings about Star Trek: The Motion Picture. And then join us again soon when we turn our targeting sensors to Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Hopefully we'll find him, and we hope that everyone will join us again for that discussion on the next episode of Phasers Set to Stun.
Khan!
So I have one more question that I don't know if we had in our outline, but
What?
just curious if we don't want to put it in. If you could have been anyone in this film, who would
Oh.
it be and why?
Oh, so many characters go through so much on this film. I'm thinking, I don't want to be him. I definitely don't want to be Chekhov because I don't want that thing in my ear.
Mhm.
No.
No, not at all.